Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew Agemy in Connecticut and Daniel Agemy in Colorado.
So you've accumulated some money. You're ready to retire. You have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million. Now what? Now what do you do? I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 7 wealth preservation strategies. And AAA, sometimes I think when risk becomes people's friends and you can only earn money, sometimes people forget about wealth preservation and how important protecting your pile, protecting the money you've accumulated is.
Yeah, exactly. I think of a client that came to us. He bought and sold this company stock. He amassed, over $1 million, and then he still liked that strategy and still continued that strategy, but he wanted to sift the $1 million off the top and have it be more of a wealth preservation strategy to it, so that he could then, with ease, do his a little bit more aggressive stuff by buying and selling the stock of his company as it went up. He'd sell it as it went down. He'd buy it and that kind of thing. So, it's one thing, having $1 million, right, Daniel? It's another thing what you do with the $1 million, right? Or $2 million or $3 million or $5 million, whatever it is. A lot of people, when they get near or close to retirement and they amass that and they think, well, I'll just keep doing what I've always done. It's not good stuff, right? That's more of a growth approach. That's not a wealth preservation approach. And whenever we talk about wealth preservation, we're still talking about growing the money, but with in a smarter way than how it was when you were 20, 30, 40 years old.
Right. It's looking at your risk units, right? Your risk to reward, and people who've accumulated some wealth tend to have some experience. Yeah. They tend to have some wisdom, and they tend to have a good gut feeling for what's going on. And, when we look what common wisdom is right now, for advisors, it's you don't get fired, right? Don't get fired, which means do what everybody else is doing. And for retail or people managing their own money, it's buy funds, buy index funds, you can't lose. And that's what's getting preached to people. The other is trying to trade too much, right? Like, let's buy U.S. Steel today, sell it tomorrow. That's not a winning strategy either, trying to jump in and out. For some people, they can make it work, but it's very few people. And so we want to talk to those people who've already accumulated some wealth. It might be real estate. It might be 401k, it might be inheritance, it might be something, but they've got $1 million plus bucks, right? They've got $500,000 plus dollars, and they're wanting to make sure that they have that for the rest of their lives, that they have that and they can live off of that, and they don't have to worry about the craziness going on in the world around them. They don't have to worry about what S&P is doing. They can go on the vacations and enjoy themselves without having to log into their stock accounts and check what's going on.
Yeah, exactly. Want to define wealth preservation, because, some people, I'm sure in our listening audience, Daniel, will say, well, I don't have any wealth, right? Just like, I talk about estate planning, and people say, I don't have any estates, and they're thinking of, 10 acres in downtown Manhattan as an estate, which of course they don't have, right? But that's not what an estate is. An estate is assets that, that should you die, have to be taken care of, right? And in the same way with wealth preservation, people might say, I don't have wealth. Well, you do have wealth. Number one, you're an American, so you got more wealth than most people in the world by a long shot, right? And the question is, to what extent do you want to preserve it, the risk reward, like you said, and what is the purpose of that money? Do you want to maintain? Do you want to have a goal to sustain your purchasing power, to stay ahead of inflation, ahead of taxation, over the long term and for future generations? That's a big goal. That's a big key. That's a big perspective for people who are trying to preserve their wealth. It's not isolating a certain event or whatnot. It's an ongoing due diligence of watching the money on a day-to-day basis, making sure that it's doing the right things day in, day out, taking advantage of opportunities that come about, selling while it's high, buying while it's low, having correct diversification, uncorrelated diversification, all these kinds of things to make sure that you maintain it and grow it with getting all the income that you need to live the rest of your life. And, that reminds me, Daniel, of this paper that we have called the Retirement Risk Report. It talks about how people can know if they're going to outlive their money. I mean, that's one of the things that retirees, don't want to do, right? Their greatest fear is outliving their money. And so this report will give a perspective to people in our listening audience. If you want it, you can call 800-725-7616 for your free copy. This report will give you a perspective of what this paper will tell you what the report is about. The report will tell you what will happen regarding taxes, what will happen if the market goes up like it did in 2013, what happens if the market goes down like it did with the financial crisis, how you're positioned to be able to live in retirement, if it's the way you need to live in retirement or the way you want to live in retirement, give you all this information. And this paper will tell you about that, and you can have it for free for calling 800-725-7616 for your free copy. Listen to Financial Strategies with Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 7 wealth preservation strategies, because people don't know what people don't know. And, Daniel, what I find a lot of times when people collect, when they accumulate this money and then they say, hey, what do I do with it now that I've accumulated it? Because they recognize, people are smart, and they recognize that they can't keep doing things the same way they've always done them. And as people get older, people amass more money. Sometimes their strategies, their risk tolerance becomes a little bit more conservative. And one of the things I find is that they end up collecting mutual funds along the way, right? Sometimes we have people that have, 2 dozen different mutual funds. And it's like, why? There's no arbitrage and there's no deals in funds. It's just kind of like, throwing money at it. And, it's kind of interesting how that works with that.
Yeah. So I guess that's you starting us off on the first wealth preservation strategy, which would be knowing your investments. So don't just collect a bunch of stuff, right? You need to know what the investments are, number one, and you need to know what you want, number two, right? What's your goal? Is your goal to preserve your wealth? Is your goal to pass your wealth on to somebody else? Is your goal to have a nice retirement? Or is your goal just to, play the lottery and see if you can increase it even more? We're not talking to those people. We're talking to people who are interested in protecting what they've built up. Again, this could be real estate. This could be 401ks. This could be inheritance money. This could be personal savings. This could be anything. But you need a strategy.
That's so true, Daniel. You know how I went to the Mecum auction recently, and every time I go to the Mecum auction, it's really interesting because they'll have these collections that people will be selling their collections at the auction. There was one collection one time, it was a Superbird, a Dodge and Plymouth Superbird collection. All they had were Superbirds of all different colors. There's one this time, it was Demons. It was Dodge Demons, 2018 Dodge Demons. It was called the Color Collection. And they were all the same car, except all different colors, and then you get these eclectic collections where people will have, they'll have a hot rod, they'll have a Corvette, they'll have a Ferrari, they'll have all these different things in there, right? And that's, but there's a strategy that they have with these things, and that's what people need with their investments, not just throwing money into stuff, but having something that's actually going to work well. And sometimes they do it on their own, and they don't think in these terms, and that's why we want to bring this information to them. So, looking at what the situation is, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? Are you trying to retire and stay retired? Or do you have enough income where you don't you're going to be okay because you got a pension, you got Social Security, and that's enough to live on. And now you just want to make your money grow, and you don't care what happens to it. You want to pass it on to the next generation. Any of these things. So you're absolutely right. And that was all based upon...
So that's the first step, right? Where somebody has to sit down and they have to write it down. They have to think about this. If you're an individual or with your spouse, you have to think about what's the purpose of this money, because that's where it really starts. What's the purpose of this money? Do we want to retire? Do we want to give it away? Do we want to pay for our kids or grandkids' college education? Think about what the purpose is, because you can't hit the goal if you don't have a goal. So that's the number one thing, is what's your strategy? Once you figure out what your goal is, then you can start building the strategy. If you have the tools to do that, you can do it yourself. And if you need help, then you can find someone who specializes in whatever your goal is. So if your goal is you haven't saved enough for retirement and you need to start saving, find somebody who's an expert in budgeting and helping you save. If you've accumulated your wealth and you want to make sure that you can sustain that and live the lifestyle you want to have throughout retirement, find somebody who's done that and knows how to do it. And if your goal is to pass on as much money as possible to charities or family members or something like that, find somebody who's an expert in the tax savings and the estate planning so that you can pass that on properly.
Yes, exactly. And, I wanted to add that we did a show called What Kind of Investor Are You? And, it may be an aggressive investor, a conservative investor, a speculator or investor. There's different things. And the key is to know, because people don't know what they don't know. And the egregious thing when you don't want to know, but that's why, you're listening to Agemy, you listen to Financial Strategies with Daniel Agemy, because people don't know what they don't know. We want to educate you. We want to help you be able to understand this stuff. And it's about time for us to go to break. And before we do, we want to give you a book by our friend Anthony Siccaro, More Life Than Money, How not to outlive your savings. And Anthony does a masterful job in this easy read book to go through different points of that, what you need to know if you're going to retire and stay retired. And we'd love to give that to you so that you can educate yourself and be better equipped to be able to make good choices, educated choices on purpose rather than by default. You can have that book for free by calling us at 800-725-7616. Be one of the first time callers, 800-725-7616. Look forward to being able to give you that book. Call now. We'll be right back after this.
Time for some tough questions for these financial advisors. What makes retirement income source different from other financial?
Our extensive experience generating investment income quickly so you can have financial peace of mind, navigate your retirement smoothly, and have more time to spend with family and doing the things you love. Honey. We gotta talk to these guys. We're done here.
This is Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
As I was talking to some people that listen to our show and talk to them about their estate planning needs, and they're worth about $10 million, and asking if they needed to do any estate planning. Maybe they should just get a simple will. And in the process, I found that they had a 24-year-old daughter. One daughter, 24 years old, and had brought to their attention that one of the big things about doing the proper estate planning is that if you do properly, the estate will not be public knowledge upon your death. And for a 24-year-old girl, hopefully she doesn't lose her parents, but if she did and she inherited $10 million and it was made public, there'd be a lot of predators coming out of the woodwork for her. So there's a lot of reasons for proper estate planning, but this is one of them. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 7 wealth preservation strategies. And some of these may be different than what people think. Estate planning, for example, I don't think everybody thinks that's a wealth preservation strategy, but it's amazing how much of people's money can be eaten up through attorney's fees, through court fees, through trying to figure out what assets are where and who owns what. It's incredible, and it's very difficult to do after the person has passed away if they haven't put together the estate plan. As much work as they may think it is to put together an estate plan, and it can be a lot of work, it's so much less work than somebody else coming in and expensive and trying to clean up the mess that you made because you didn't want to spend the time to put together the estate plan.
Right, or the money, right? Because if you die intestate without a will, let's just say, or without a proper will, many times the probate court is going to appoint an attorney to handle things and get things straightened out, which was going to probably cost $400 or $500 at least an hour. And, that's going to be quite costly, let alone the aggravation on your beneficiaries. But, Daniel, the definition of estate planning is accumulation, preservation, and distribution of one's assets. So, part of estate planning is accumulating assets and then preserving the assets and then distributing them properly at the time that it's supposed to be distributed. So it's huge to be able to make sure that your estate planning is in order properly, not just making sure your documents are in order, but the whole pie, right? Accumulation, preservation, distribution. And if you're not careful about on the preservation side, there may not be anything left to distribute.
Yeah, and this isn't just in your passing. This is while people are living too. We've seen plenty of times where somebody's managing the money or taking care of the assets, and they have some kind of disease, brain trauma, whatever, and they think they can still make decisions, but they're not able to. And the spouse, they don't believe their spouse telling them that they can't make the decisions because they have the brain problem. They have the disease, and it can be very painful. So that's one of the things where if your assets are owned by the trust, the other spouse without mental issues, without brain injuries, is able to take on the management of those things. And it can be done a lot quicker, a lot easier, without losing assets, without hurting people's feelings. Same thing in passing. We've seen a lot of families get into big arguments because they say, well, I'll just give X child all the assets and they'll divide them up. And it doesn't work that way. Money messes people up. It does not work that you cannot trust that somebody's going to do the right thing, even if they're the nicest person in the world. They might not know how to do the right thing. They might not know your intentions. It could be greed. There could be so many other things that or something could happen to them, and their spouse might decide to keep it, or the person they inherit might decide to. So the estate planning is one of the biggest asset preservation tools that we can think of.
Yeah, you're right, Daniel. That's huge because you hit upon it, right? What happens if that person dies? And then there's taxation if that person gets it, right? And then even if that person did it perfectly the way, let's say the parents wanted them to, how one of the other siblings receives it may be putting up a wall between them which is not what the parents want. Right. So this way, if the parents just say and do what they want to say and do, it just makes it a lot cleaner. I agree 100% with you, Daniel, on that. And, this is just goes across the board. It's interesting what you said, Daniel, about people who have mental issues and they don't realize it. I had a client 35 years ago when I first got into the business. She bought a disability policy, and when he was in a car accident and messed up his brain. And and it was not able to work for a period of time. But here's the egregious thing, that he thought he could go back to work and thought he was no longer disabled. So he told the insurance company, I am no longer disabled. So they stopped the payments to him, and we were not able to get them reinstated again because they had brain damage and they weren't able to do what needed to be done to get it reinstated from that standpoint. So that's a perfect example. They didn't even know that they didn't know that they had that they had brain damage, right? And that happens. We've seen that with other clients where they get early onset dementia or whatever the case may be, and they don't believe it. Because in death and dying, there's several stages, like 5 stages when people die that people go through. One of those major ones is denial, and that's not just with death, that's with major things that happen in life, right? So when somebody's losing their memory, they deny that they're losing their memory from that angle. They don't even know it. So that's why it's so important to get the paperwork together in a fashion that's going to do. And when you talk about the estate planning real quick, Daniel, we talk about 4 or 5 documents, and 2 or 3 of them are only, or actually 1 or 2 of them are usually only for your death. The others are for your life. So most of these things are for your life, because you're talking about, the living will, when to pull the plug or if to pull the plug, all that kind of stuff. But
before we move on to the next thing, when we're talking about estate planning, you need to have the estate planning worked in with your financial plan. A lot of people will put together an estate plan and not fund it, not put the assets in it, and that did you no good. Maybe in some particular case you can have it flow into it, but the living benefits especially, the assets need to be owned by the trust to make that work. And so make sure when you're putting together your estate plan, you're combining everything together and you're making it work synergistically.
Exactly. Good point, Daniel. And we have a paper today called the Retirement Risk Report paper that will help you understand, will you outlive your money, and what do you need to do to be able to, when it comes to your money, make sure that your money is going to be in the fashion that you need it to be when you need it to be. If you want to retire and stay retired, there's needs. There's what you need to be able to retire and stay retired. There's what you want, which is a little bit more than that to be able to stay and retire. This report will help you understand that. It will put your money through a stress test and so that you can know what would happen if we have another run up like we did in 2013, 2016, or if we have a financial crisis again. So this paper will help you understand that report and what that's available, that risk report that's available for you. And you can have that paper free by calling us at 800-725-7616. You're listening to Financial Strategies. This father-son team, Andrew and Daniel Agemy, coming to you because people don't know what people don't know. Today's topic is 7 wealth preservation strategies. We've hit the first 2, which is that you need to know your investment strategy. What is your purpose? What are you trying to do? And the second is estate planning, proper estate planning. The third one, Daniel.
Our third one here is asset diversification. And they say that there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? My mom taught us that growing up. There's no such a thing. And we would try to trick her and find a free lunch. And she always said, well, if this person buys us the lunch, well, somebody paid for it. We didn't pay for it, but somebody paid for it. The closest thing you can get to a free lunch, right, is diversification. Because with taking on less units of risk, you're getting more return. Or when other things are going down in value, these are going up in value, right? That would be like correlation or reverse correlation. And then there's other things where it's not necessarily reverse correlated, whereas if your Apple stock goes down, you have options that go up, because if you hedge yourself perfectly, then you just won't ever make any money, right? If you hedge your Apple stock perfectly, when it goes down, you make the exact same money going up, then you always stay flat. But there's some things that don't move at all, right? People might know these as, CDs or, money market funds, things like that. Well, there's long-term investments. These aren't long-term investments, right? CDs and money market accounts. There's long-term investments that can provide income and do special things for people, protect their money, that are not correlated to markets. And so you don't lose when markets go down, and you have cash on the sidelines in a way where you can invest if things go up. So diversification, making sure you have different piles of money that react to different situations in the market. You talked AAA at the beginning about people collecting mutual funds. Having a bunch of ETFs or having a bunch of mutual funds does not mean that you're diversified.
Right.
They're probably all owning the same stocks. Even if they're not, and they are really diversified throughout the stock market, and the bond market. The difficulty is people do the same thing with funds, right? When people get scared, what do people do? They sell what they're scared of. So when you own even, say, corporate credit or corporate bonds, right? Those are not made to trade necessarily. When things go crazy, they're not made to trade. They're not made for everybody to dump them. It's not an equity. But we put them in these wrappers, right? Investment professionals put them in these wrappers and make them tradable when things are not supposed to be traded like that. And so when you're not diversified, you just own a bunch of funds, you end up losing the benefits of owning the underlying securities. You also end up losing some of the contracts associated, like if you own fixed income or something like that, you give up those contracts when you own it in a fund. So you need to be really careful with funds because they sound like they're diversified, but they all kind of do the same thing. Just like the tide, right? When the tide goes out, all the boats go down, all the boats go up. You want something that can stand on its own. It's on a pole and it stays the same spot. If that's what you want, if that's what you need for the diversification, you need something like the dock that doesn't move when the tides are going off and down, right?
Right. It's a good one, Daniel. I know in that analogy, right? It doesn't matter if they're motorboats or sailboats, big boats or small boats, new boats or old boats, right? They all go up and they all go down at the same time. So you want something that when something's up, when something's down, something else is up, and you can sell while it's up and buy while it's down, and vice versa. So that's masterful job, Daniel. Masterful job. Well, I see that it's time for us to take a break. And before we go to break, I'd like to offer those in our listening audience the book by Anthony Siccaro, More Life Than Money, How Not to Outlive Your Savings. Love to put this in your hand. It's an easy read book that will be able to educate you on a lot of things that you don't know. And we love to have you get that for free by calling us the next 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy of More Life Than Money by Anthony Siccaro. 800-725-7616. Call now. We'll be right back.
Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
I hate insurance premiums. Don't you just hate insurance premiums? You pay all this money out and you never get anything back unless you have an accident. But you know what? The thing I like about insurance is that if I have an accident, right, that it's there to pick up the pieces. Because if you think about it, if you don't have car insurance and you hit a child chasing a ball, forget about trying to save anything the rest of your life, right? Because the parents are going to take that from a lawsuit. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy. And you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 7 wealth preservation strategies. And some of these may be different than what people are thinking. We went through a few already. And AAA, what is the next one?
Why insurance? The insurance factor, right? Insurance is a defensive measure, but you have to have defense, right? It protects your assets. Like I said, if you don't have insurance and you hit a child chasing a ball, forget about trying to save anything. But the best kind of insurance, there's several kinds of insurance. There's health insurance, there's life insurance, there's property casualty insurance. There's, long-term care insurance, there's Medicare insurance, Medigap insurance, all kinds of insurances there are. And the key is making sure that you're not insurance poor, but having the right balance in the right way. Like, one of the things that we like a lot for wealth preservation. And, again, we talked about distribution or estate planning is the accumulation, the preservation, and the distribution of assets. And we like the aspect of whole life insurance as a way, good dividend paying, participating whole life insurance to be able to help people to accumulate money, to be able to preserve money, to be able to distribute money on a tax-free basis. And when I say distribute it, I mean it distribute it to themselves primarily. Sure, it will go to the next generation or whatnot, but we like it for the person who's using it. That's why it's called life insurance. It's for their life. We don't call it death insurance. That's term insurance, right? That's another thing. But life insurance is for your life.
Yeah. And some of the life benefits are, if you think about how much money you put in the bank, how much money you have in the bank, right? Some of you have a lot of money just sitting in the bank. You're earning nothing on it. Some of you have loans, right? You've got a car loan. You've got a mortgage. Maybe you've got some equipment that you financed. So you're having a bank either pay you nothing on your money or you're paying a bank a lot of interest. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen a lot of people do with whole life insurance, why Andrew's saying it's for your life, is you can be your own bank. You can finance all these things yourself, and then you get the interest, which makes the policy grow more. Instead of getting paid nothing with your money in the bank, it's there, you're the bank. You're paying yourself interest, or the company's paying you interest on that money. And so it's got some tax benefits, but really what it allows you to do is it allows you to benefit and be your own bank in a lot of different ways. This fits in with the estate plan because this can also help protect you from taxes when you die, when you pass away. It can help with inheritances. It can help you give to cause. So it fits in with the estate plan. It needs to be a part of the estate plan. Right? Sometimes you can get things like long-term care. That's something that can be extremely expensive for people. And some of these living benefits on like a whole life insurance policy can give you either long-term care or look-alike long-term care insurance where you can have some protection if you need that without paying some of those egregious premiums Andrew was talking about. Now, this is not financial advice. This is information that you guys can take, you can look at, you can do your due diligence, you can ask the proper questions, you can go to a professional and talk about your individual suggestions for you. But these are just things that are available and ways to protect your wealth. An umbrella policy is another way to make sure that your assets are protected, right, AAA?
Yeah, very much. That's often what we talk to people about who come in from our estate planning workshops is, what's your deductible on your car and house insurance? What's your umbrella policy level? Some people don't have any policies. Some have maybe $1 million umbrella, but their house is worth $750,000, and they have a couple $1 million in their 401k plans. Well, that kind of umbrella is far too small, in my opinion. They need to be looking at a bigger umbrella policy, one that will, somebody slips at their house and falls, there's a claim against them, they'll be still covered from that, and that's a huge thing to be able to look at. Those are managing your insurance properly, I think, is what you're getting at, Daniel. And, we have more to talk to about this. And, but with that, the proper, I can just hear the people in the listening audience, because there's two sides, right, Daniel? Actually, three sides. There's people that like insurance. There's people that are the polar opposite, that don't like it at all. And then there's the people in between that don't know anything about it. And, the people that I can hear, the people that don't like it saying a lot of things against it, because I've heard, if not all, most of the objections to it. And a lot of times people are not understanding things clearly when they say this is an objection. They say it because that's what somebody told them about it, but they don't know it to be true. I mean, I can get into, nitty gritty stuff like direct and non-direct recognition policies and how the non-direct are better than the direct recognition policies, in my opinion, right? But people in our, there's many life insurance agents that don't know what I'm talking about when I say that kind of stuff. I see their eyes glass over and the curiosity, the deer in the headlight look. But the point being is making sure you have a good advisor, somebody that can help you and educate you to be able to make smart decisions with that. With that, we have a paper to give you today that says how to choose a financial advisor. Right. You may have a financial advisor and you may not have a financial advisor. You might not think there's a need for a financial advisor. That's fine. That's up to you. Right. But if you're going to be thinking about about interviewing financial advisors, use this paper. This paper will help you be able to understand some of the basics about being a fiduciary and how important that is, and a true fiduciary, as well as some of the other perspectives in regard to choosing a financial advisor. We'd love to put this in your hand for free by calling us at 800-725-7616. 800-725-7616 for your free copy of How to Choose a Financial Advisor. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 7 wealth preservation strategies. This father and son team coming at you because people don't know what people don't know. We want to educate you so that you know. So we're talking about, we have talked about the aspect of preserving your wealth now that you built it by knowing your investment strategy, working on estate planning, the accumulation, preservation, and distribution of your assets, asset diversification, making sure that your investments are non-correlated, your diversification is non-correlated. And now we're talking about insurance. And, other kinds of insurance are long-term care insurance. And the thing I don't like about traditional long-term care insurance is, well, let's back up a minute. What is long-term care insurance? Long-term care insurance is basically disability insurance for your investments, for your assets, protecting your assets so that you don't spend them down is the basic idea. Protecting you that if you're ever needing long-term care of sorts, that it would provide money for you. The traditional long-term care policies are ones that you pay premiums into. And the thing I don't like about them is that you happen to drop dead and it never pays out. You paid all that money for nothing, like a car insurance policy or a house insurance policy. However, it's higher. It's a much higher premiums that you're paying than in a car or house insurance policy typically, if it's any good, if it's a policy at all. But and there's hybrid policies that you can buy that are better deals. But the big thing is having a robust portfolio. I mean, why do you need long-term care insurance? You need long-term care insurance because nobody wants to talk about, nobody has on their bucket list that they want to live their whole life, spend their money down and go into convalescent home and die. No, you want to stay home. What's it going to take to stay home? Money. Best way to provide money is through a robust portfolio, is our perspective. And that's why we're talking to you about 7 wealth preservation strategies today. But nevertheless, in the spirit of being true fiduciaries, we're explaining to you all the different things that you can do and that are available for your usage. Education is the key.
Yeah. And each of these steps so far, it's really about planning. The first step was you sitting down and thinking about what your goals are. What do you want? What's the purpose of the wealth that you've built up, right? The estate plan, you need to sit down again and you need to review what type of estate plan you had. If it was from 15 years ago, it needs to be redone. You need to redo it. Things have changed. Maybe you're disinheriting somebody. Maybe you're inheriting somebody. There's grandkids. There's who knows what has changed in 15
Good
years,
point.
right? So you need to review that. Your assets probably have changed tremendously in the past 15 years too. Your house value has changed tremendously in the past 15 years. So you need to sit down. It's a new year, right? We're in 2025 now. Congratulations, everybody. We made it to 2025. And it's a perfect time to sit down and to think about these things. They say that people spend more time researching their vacation destination or their dishwasher than they do their financial plan. So take an hour this week, take an hour next week, take a day off from work and think about these things, because to get where you want to go, it's going to take some energy from you to decide what you want your future to look like. And then as we move on to the insurance too, this you probably need some help from a professional because it's a little bit more difficult. But once you get those first things done, what the purpose of the money is, what your plans are for the future, is it to retire? Is it to have a legacy? Is it both? Right? Then you can start with the insurance and some of these other things, the diversification, because that will allow you to strategize for what your goals are. The diversification is a really important part too, because you need to know if somebody tells you 60-40 portfolio is perfect, that's what everyone should have. Number one, that was designed when rates were not where they are today. So it may not make sense today. A lot of the mantras from the financial world were from different times. They don't take into consideration, right? Target date funds, all these things. There's a committee that takes forever to make decisions on how to do these. So if rates drastically change, shouldn't your approach change? The rules don't apply anymore. If all of a sudden rates were 9% and the market averages 9% over 150 years, why would you want to be 50? Why would you want to be 60-40? You're taking on more risk for less return, right? So you need to use your own brain, not just follow the mantras that are provided. You need to see what's going on in the world and see how many units of risk you're taking on for how many units of reward you can get.
Oh, good advice, Daniel. Good advice. Going along with that is just, the aspect of the Medicare supplement insurance fits in the insurance realm to help preserve, but you've got it hit it right on the nose, Daniel. If you're just joining us, you listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Agemy. Today's topic is 7 wealth preservation strategies. We have a book to go along with today's show to the next 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616. It's called More Life Than Money, How to Not Outlive Your Savings. And Anthony Siccaro in this book goes through and helps you to understand those things that you don't know, but you need to know when it comes to retirement and retirement planning and such. And so we'd love to put this book in your hand for free. Call us at 800-725-7616, the first 5 first-time callers, and we'll be right back after this.
Do you have any questions for me about retirement income source?
I just want to make sure I can invest well enough to have enough income, enjoy my retirement.
We build a custom retirement plan based around your income and goals.
How do I know I can trust you?
Building trust does take time, but our investment advisory arm is comprised of fiduciaries, which means our obligation is to you, so you can enjoy your retirement. It's a little more income stability.
I'm in.
That's 2 out of 3.
This is Financial Strategy with Andrew and Daniel Agemy.
Business owners, are you one of those people, one of those business owners that so many times believes that your business is going to be your retirement? And that's not such a bad thought. But what I find many, many times is that a business owner would put a value on their business that's much higher than the going rate. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today, we're talking about 7 wealth preservation strategies. And so far, we've covered knowing your strategy, knowing your goals, knowing what you want from your wealth. And then we moved on to the importance of having the proper estate plan. We talked about diversification and making sure you have some non-correlated assets, making sure that you're getting that free lunch of diversification. We talked about different insurance strategies and the purpose of insurance in protecting your wealth. And AAA, number 5, we are moving on to business succession planning. And this one is often missed, right? A lot of times business owners don't know the value of their business. They're just trying to keep the business running, and they're not necessarily thinking about planning for succession, planning to have a liquidation event, planning for a strategy to get out of the business.
Exactly. Exit strategies are very important when you own a business, because many times it's people's major asset. not always, but many times. And how to transition out and still have a significant value there is big. We're not going to be able to cover it in this show, but we want to bring across to people that that's one of the aspects, of wealth preservation strategies. So it's one of the strategies is making sure that you have an exit strategy that's properly laid out. Whether it's with, selling your company to your employees, whether it's selling it to somebody else. I mean, we have a client that retired recently. He was a kind of a small time painter, and he had a few people working for him, and he never thought that he was going to be able to sell his business, get anything for his business, but he ended up being able to sell his business. Granted, not for a lot, being that, one of the major assets of the business was a fairly new company truck, but nevertheless, he got something for his business, which was better than not getting anything. But many times he was a situation where he never planned on getting anything for his business. But there are many business owners who say, well, I think my business is worth X, but then when they go to try to sell it, they get Y, or people wanting to buy it want to pay Y for it, which is far less than what they're planning. Like maybe many times half or so of what they were planning on. So it's a key thing to be able to have a good exit strategy and have a good valuation on the business. And so many times business owners are good at growing their businesses, and that's all well and good, but they forget about the investing, about diversifying, about doing other things. And that's another form of the wealth preservation for the business succession, is not just putting all your eggs in one basket, not putting all your major eggs in the business, but doing some other things as well. We can, if you're so inclined to that, we have strategies that we can employ and that we can educate you on so that you can understand those better.
Yeah. And I think with the business owners as well, that tends to be one of their, if you own a business, that's probably your biggest asset. Now, some people have got to a spot where their business is growing and it's pumping out a lot of cash and they don't know exactly what to do with the cash. They're the owners, so they pay tax on the money either way. If they take it out of the business, they pay tax. If they leave it in the business, they pay tax. And so there's also some strategies with this succession planning. If you're at that point where your business is just pumping out this money and you're not sure what to do with it, and the tax aspect is the biggest worry to you, there's things. The government wants you to hire employees. The government wants you to employ people. So the government gives business owners certain advantages that regular people go into a job, taking that job, don't get. And so there's a lot of strategies for you. So if you're at the spot where you're trying to sell the business, or if you're just at the spot where you hit and it's finally printing money for you, it's finally doing what you dreamed it would do, and you got all this money and you're just worried about the taxes, you don't know what to do with this stuff. There's different strategies that fit into this business. We're calling it succession planning, but it might just be business planning in general, right? And there's certain things that you can do because you're a business owner, and the IRS has allowed certain benefits for you. AAA. The next one we have, number 6, turning your assets into productive assets. So this is what? You sold your business and you have a bunch of money and you need to get an income off of it, right? This is, you have the big 401k, you got $2 million in your 401k. It's not productive. You're hoping that the markets will continue to go up. It's not productive. Productive means it is generating some type of income for you, right?
Right. Not sitting on the beach sipping pioladas. Yeah.
Yeah. A business. You go and buy a business. You take $1 million, you go buy a business, you expect to get a return on the business, right? Now, the talking heads, Wall Street, everything has tried to convince you that if you go buy Apple, you go buy one of these companies, it's still productive because the company is, and you're a stockholder. The difficulty is, do you know what PE, do you know what price per earning you're paying for that company? The other thing is, you don't really have any say. That's a joke, right? And so we're not just talking about the productive asset as you're buying a company that has an internal rate of return. We want you to get a rate of return, right? Or have some say in it. Just like if you were a small business owner and you had to say, if I invest in this or this, what's my rate of return going to be? You need to be the CEO of your financials, right? Get a smart CFO to help you, but you need to be the CEO of and decide, I can invest in this or this, which one's going to give me the better rate of return,
Right. Right. Good stuff, Daniel. Good stuff. And, as we, I want to let you know that you're listening to Financial Strategies with Daniel Agemy. And today's topic is 7 wealth preservation strategies. And, going along with today's show is a paper called How to Choose a Financial Advisor. You may not, this stuff that you're hearing today might sound good. It might sound foreign. It might, who knows what, right? But, getting somebody that will educate you, a good financial advisor is going to educate you in the things that you need to know so that you can make good, sound financial decisions. Kind of like a CFO within an organization. CEO is a very smart person, generally speaking, but they have people around them like the CFO, the CIO, etc., that can educate them so that they can make a decision very quickly, succinctly, and smartly. And that's what a good financial advisor will do for you. And so we have this paper, How to Choose a Financial Advisor. Make sure that they're a true fiduciary, as well as some other things. And you can have that for free by calling us at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616, and get for your free copy. Listen, financial strategies, because people don't know what people don't know. Daniel, anything more that you want to say about those income-producing assets, right?
Productive assets, right? Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah. That might be real estate. Right now, we see a lot of people selling the real estate because they can get a better internal rate of return. They can get a better rate of return in other assets. It could be dividend-paying stocks, buying good dividend-paying stocks. It could be buying businesses. There's a lot of businesses for sale right now, right?
Right.
It could be buying businesses, getting into businesses. We talk about buying stocks as buying businesses, but if your multiples are too high, it's not wealth preservation. Because you have more downside than upside, right? So maybe it's just buying physical businesses in your local areas. Maybe it's throughout the country. Maybe it's buying farms and farmlands, right? There's different ways you can participate in that. We like corporate credit. We see a lot of value in buying the debt of good, strong businesses because you know what your rate of return is. And then don't forget about alternatives, right? If you're trying to protect your wealth, don't forget about alternatives. That might be gold, right? Gold beat the S&P 500 last year. Who knew that? Nobody's talking about that, right?
Right.
Maybe it's gold. Maybe it's some of these royalty and streaming companies. Maybe it's business development companies. You can help small businesses grow, right? Or maybe it's things like Bitcoin. Don't forget about alternatives.
Right. Good stuff, Daniel. And the key to all that was what I was just saying a few moments ago, right? The 7th strategy is have a proper financial advisor, a specialist in the area that you need, right? If you need heart surgery, are you going to go to a podiatrist? No, you're going to go to a heart surgeon, right? And so make sure that if you need income and need to retire and stay retired, that you go to an income specialist. If you're looking for growth, go to somebody that specializes in growth, right? But make sure you have the proper advisor, and that is the right thing. Now, maybe you're a do-it-yourselfer, and that's all well and good, but there comes a time in your life when you're no longer going to be the proper financial advisor, or you're not going to be able to do it yourself, right? If you're married and you're the guy and you're an engineer and you're going to do it yourself, and your wife is an artist, who's going to handle that money for her? Well, many times it's best to be able to get somebody that can find a right financial advisor while you're alive, so that you can make sure that you put their stamp of approval on that person to help out your wife when she passes away. Or if you're the woman that is in charge of the finances, to help your husband, whatever it may be, but making sure that you got the right people to help you, because there comes a time in your life when you can no longer do it yourself, whether you're not here or you're just tired of it, or whatever the case may be. We see time and time again, people who are in real estate, when they get in their 70s, they're tired of dealing with real estate. They've done it all their life, and they sell their real estate because they don't want to manage it anymore. Or they let somebody else manage it. So having the proper specialist is the 7th strategy. So we've gone down the strategies, 7 strategies of knowing your strategy, the estate planning, asset diversification with non-correlated investments, going into insurance, business succession planning, making sure that your assets are turn them into a robust portfolio, one that will generate income producing assets. And having the seventh strategy is making sure that you've got the proper advisor that's going to educate you to be able to make smart decisions. Daniel, anything in closing?
Remember, everything we talked about today it starts with you sitting down and thinking about your goals, what you want your future to look like. It's 2025, and it's time to think about what you want the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to be like. What's the purpose of your wealth? Think about that. Are you interested in protecting the wealth, or, was it just easy to come by and it doesn't really matter what happens to it? But stop, think about those things, and then see if you're on track for your goals. If not, look for the people that can help you go through some of these 7 steps and get you in the right spot, the spot that you need to be for 2025 and going forward.
Yes. All right. Great. Well, as we close out today, we'd like to leave you with this book for free from our friend Anthony Sicaro, More Life Than Money, How Not to Outlive Your Savings. And Anthony does a great job of helping people to know those things that they don't know so that they can retire and stay retired. We'd love to be able to put this easy read book in your hand for free to the next 5 first-time callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616 for your free copy. At Agemy Financial Strategies, we believe that an educated retiree is a happy and stress-free retiree. And until next time, we encourage you to know what you don't know. Thank you so much for joining us.